Mike Perry rarely ever backs down from a fight, even if he isn't the one who's supposed to be fighting. During a fiery press conference, Perry almost got into a brawl. That too, not just with anyone, but with Russian heavyweight Magomed Ismailov. Today, we'll be going through the details of what went down and how Mike Perry nearly got in a brawl with another fighter during a heated confrontation in Russia. Let's get started. Firstly, how did the fight start? The former UFC welterweight and now BKFC star was in Russia to support his friend and teammate Alex Nicholson. However, he nearly got into a fight during a tense press conference on Tuesday. The brawl erupted after Perry locked eyes with Russian heavyweight Magomed Ismailov. What began with smiles and nice trash talk ended with the two separated after punches were thrown. As per Perry, the situation escalated after he uttered a word that is often used as a curse word in the U.S. Ismailov, however, evidently took it another way, resulting in a near fight in a television studio. Moving on, what was the point of disagreement? Perry went on to Instagram to address the situation, complaining that Ismailov almost jumped him. He went on to say that they were lucky that the other people around them were trying to break up the brawl. In the U.S., certain swear words are widely used to the point where no one takes them personally anymore. In Russia, however, the word can still be perceived in its literal meaning. Perry went on to say that he used the word, but he never meant to insult him. In his words, he wasn't talking about anyone's mom. Hence, the brawl was quite uncalled for since he had never meant any offense to Magomed. Perry insisted over and over that curse words are just normal words that people in the U.S. use in their everyday lives. But one could say that since he was present in Russia, he could have been more mindful of what he was saying. Sure, it just slips out sometimes, but it might have saved them the energy and the effort if Perry had been more mindful of the language gap. Next up, did they really end up fighting each other? Perry ended up sparring with middleweight brawler Magomed Ismailov, a regular on the Russian fight scene. Both of them are amazing fighters in their own place, but it only looks good when the fight is actually planned. Fortunately, the brawl was separated before things had gotten too far out of hand. The fight did not escalate too much, but we can never be sure about Perry. No one would know if he would want to return to finish what they had started. Perry has discussed his willingness to walk into hostile territory where he'd likely be outnumbered. He appeared on The Fighter vs. the Writer, where he challenged Nate Diaz to bare-knuckle combat. On the show, he added how the entire fighting community understands what battling Russia entails. He has strong opinions about Russia and its fighters, claiming that they are dangerous people who very easily get offended. However, he constantly likes to remind us all that he is unafraid. He talked about how he and his friend are headed to one of the most dangerous places in the world to battle one of the most dangerous individuals in the world. In his words, it was going to be just him and his brother versus everyone over there. Quite dramatic if you would ask us, but as long as it helps him feel better. Coming up, what did Perry have to say about this brawl later on? He talked to the Red Corner MMA about the incident in quite an interesting way. He mentioned that he had nearly fought bare-knuckled in Russia because he was overjoyed. He thought, damn, he had come to Russia with his buddy to fight, but he wasn't even fighting. He stated how he was a bit happy at the opportunity being presented right in front of him. However, when he thought about how he was about to fight for free, he thought that it was silly. He's a businessman, which is why he would never do something that he gets paid to do for free. When asked if he'd do a bare-knuckle contest in Russia, Perry was pretty straightforward about it. He talked about how he's worth millions of dollars, hence they have to pay him, only after which will he put up a performance. In his opinion, he simply offered one a free taste of what it looks like when he gets into a fight. In many ways, he treated the incident in a very nonchalant way, barely even bothered by it. Moving on, was Perry happy to proceed with the fight again? Perry was adamant about the fact that he was not going to get into a fight free of charge. He stressed how this is the reason contracts exist, and this is how business works. He insisted upon his value as a fighter, talking about how he has gained his expertise and skill through his fights. He compared it to the Russian fighter Ismailov, whom he claimed was juiced up with steroids. According to him, he's a natural fighter who fights professionally at 175 pounds and is regarded as one of the top fighters in the world. He stressed the fact that despite the fighter being heavier than him at 220, he is not afraid. He's ready to fight him, but he does not want to become the highlight of the event without even getting paid. He explained that as the sole reason behind his hesitation. Finally, how did Nicholson's fight in Russia go? The true purpose of Mike Perry being in Russia was to support his friend Nicholson. However, the latter ended up having quite a rough night in the boxing ring, and Perry couldn't help but blame himself. Nicholson, a 32-year-old UFC and PFL veteran, was brutally defeated by Vagabov. He was outclassed and knocked out late in the first round of a boxing fight placed in a cage and competed with 4-ounce gloves. Vagabov, with a 3-1 professional boxing record, continually found a home for his thudding hooks, and he had Nicholson punching at air there until one final straight left hand knocked the American out. Perry subsequently blamed himself for his teammates' poor performance. Perry tweeted about how he failed his friend that night. It wasn't his fault, he continued, because he had the courage. However, Perry failed to provide him with the essentials he required. When they turned it into a boxing bout, their plan to brawl should have just changed. In his opinion, Nicholson was gutsy, but he needed someone smarter and more knowledgeable about the game. This defeat ultimately ended Nicholson's 4-fight winning streak. Moving on to other news, firstly, Mike Perry wants to fight Nate Diaz for BKFC. Diaz is now a free agent since submitting Tony Ferguson at UFC 279. However, the president of the Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, David Feldman, has already set his sights on the Stockton native. He even called Diaz versus Perry a fan's fantasy fight. Diaz hinted at a return to the UFC, but only after experimenting with other endeavors. One of them could be BKFC, but none of us could be sure. He seems indifferent to the idea of this fantasy, but Perry appears entirely willing to fight him. He didn't say what he wanted to do after finishing his UFC contract. Mike Perry eventually agreed to fight Nate Diaz as long as his crew did not harm his pregnant girlfriend. Next up, Perry may be hinting at avenging Nicholson's loss. We all could probably guess that he was not going to leave his close friend's loss without vengeance. Because of the brawl, the tensions among them in Russia were already too high. Nicholson's loss, coupled with Perry blaming himself for said loss, might have made him want to go out for revenge. He recently tweeted about how Apollo had fought Drago. Rocky had come back to take him out. He compared circumstances to his own circumstances alongside Nicholson. He proceeded to mention Platinum Perry versus Vagabov in his tweet, explicitly claiming that he would like to stand against the Russian winner in a match to cover his buddy's loss. It's quite sweet if you ask us, but nothing is stopping this man from getting what he wants. Lastly, tensions have risen since Perry explicitly cursed at a reporter. Perry was recently interviewed by the media about whether he is best buddies with another UFC fighter, Luis Pena. Recently, the two combatants have been observed practicing together. To this, Perry's response was quite heated, defending that he is just here for a fight. He stated that Pena is a good person and that there is no reason for them to be with it. We can't be sure if the interviewer meant to imply anything in their friendship. However, Perry kept on going, insulting the interviewer and asking him if all the people around him are his best friends. Before walking away from the mic, Perry dropped yet another bitter F-bomb, leaving everyone shocked to see his reaction. Leave it to Perry to scare everyone to death. And that's a wrap, folks. What do you think about Mike Perry's response to the brawl in Russia? Tell us in the comments below. And as always, make sure to click that like button and subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on more insights into the fight scene. See you in the next video.